Netanyahu's up to his old tricks again. I think we're going round in circles, aren't we, with this? He's hinted to the Israeli channels that Palestinians should be allowed to leave the territory, echoing past thoughts as well and proposals by Trump for displacement. And that's been mentioned by other Israeli officials. What's he up to?
Thank you for having me, Mark. It seems that once again, Netanyahu is pushing forward the displacement agenda, which has always been the end game of this war. Basically, now he is putting it under a humanitarian cover, telling the Israeli media and the Palestinians themselves, and even the international community, that the Palestinians should be allowed to leave if they elect to do so, citing examples like Ukraine and other conflicts. However, in many of these other conflicts, the refugees who fled their countries were allowed to return when hostilities toned down. The only difference here is whenever Palestinians are displaced out of historical Palestine, whether the state of Israel now, what is the state of Israel now, or the occupied West Bank, or the beleaguered Gaza Strip, they are never allowed to return. Even those Palestinians who went to seek treatment, injured Palestinians, thousands of them, who went to seek treatment outside the Gaza Strip in Egypt and other countries, are not allowed back by the Israelis since the beginning of the war, even though many of them want to go back to their home country. So it seems that the end game of this war is the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians, is the complete accomplishment of the genocidal project that is being implemented over there. There seems to be a very meticulously prepared plan to depopulate the Gaza Strip as a first step to depopulating the entirety of the Palestinian territories, which is the West Bank and East Jerusalem as well, where there is a very softer version of displacement schemes taking place over there, unfortunately. This is an act of ethnic cleansing, which constitutes one of the main pillars of the crime of genocide that is being perpetrated in Gaza. No matter how much Prime Minister Netanyahu tries to don a humanitarian face on this very sinister scheme, it will nevertheless always be a crime against humanity and a war crime.
Yes, and when Netanyahu tries to don a humanitarian face, he can hardly contain the fact that everyone knows he's lying. He knows he's lying. It's not true. But he's saying it anyway. I think I remember, Dr. Osman, when this was first mentioned by Trump at the beginning of his second term, and then it went quiet a little bit about moving Palestinians into Jordan and Egypt, and you worried that it would come back, and we hadn't heard the last of it, and here we are. Coming to you, Mr. Oda, Netanyahu, as Dr. Osman was saying, compared potential Palestinian displacement to refugee movements in Syria and in Ukraine as well. What is your take on what is happening right now and what Netanyahu is claiming and suggesting?
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. I think to a certain extent it is very easy to predict the Netanyahu behavior along with his government, because it's a religious behavior adopted by any Israeli leader. It's not political pragmatics, which is necessary for any leader or any government in any state around the world. Today, this government is stumbling with their politics since October 7th until now. They are bragging about killing children and civilians. Sometimes they deny the entire idea of the genocide, in spite of the worldwide condemnation and the recognition of these crimes as a genocide. They are trying to evade any peace process, whether in the West Bank or in the Gaza Strip, and they are providing conditions to even enter the negotiation process, as stated by Netanyahu 2 days ago when he said that the idea of negotiations or a 60-day truce is now off the table. We have 5 conditions set by the Israeli cabinet, and we need these 5 conditions unnegotiable. which is the disarmament of Hamas, a civil authority, and the return of the detainees, and the evacuation or sort of a voluntary evacuation of the Palestinian population from Gaza. And as my colleague Dr. Osman has stated, the displacement scheme is still dominant for Israel and for the US, and the idea of evacuation is still on the table, and any peace settlement will have to include the idea of evacuation or opening the border crossings, which means the evacuation of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians because they are starving and they have no shelter, they have no water, so it's going to be forced displacement anyway. I want to warn that this crazy statement by Netanyahu for the I-24, the Israeli channel, when he said yesterday that he has a sense of political responsibility to establish the greater Israel. He is the prime minister of the democratic Israel, and he's calling himself now that he's the king of Tel Aviv. Now he's talking about a complete scheme and aggression against Egypt and Jordan and the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, as if he is the controller of the entire region. This is the logic he's adopting. He's trying to evade any political dilemma inside Israel by continuing the hostilities and creating more enemies such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran. He always has an enemy, and in conclusion, he's always forcing the Israeli people to continue defending, or can we say defending themselves to reach internal settlement. On Sunday, we expect to see massive protests and strikes inside Israel, which might actually lead to early elections. Because it's now very clear and evident for the mediators, for the Israeli people, and for the US that Netanyahu is not able to lead the phase next to the war.